Pinterest problems. For today's Pinterest problem project, we are going to be trying to make DIY marble coasters. I've seen coasters that look like this for sale for a lot more than it costs to try to make these. So let's see if this is worth it or if we're just gonna head to the store and buy these. The supplies that you'll need for this project are Sculpey oven baked clay, a baking sheet, wax paper, an X-Acto knife, a rolling pin or clear jar, gold liquid gilding, and a paintbrush. The first step is going to be to take our clay and pick out our colors for the coaster. So I got this big kahuna here because I have high hopes for these coasters and I want to make a lot. Ooh. Fresh clay. 30 assorted colors ready for our use. They want us to break off chunks of these. I'm not sure exactly how much of a chunk they want. Okay, once we have our chunks, then we need to roll them into the snake-looking objects. So they just want you to roll them with your hands onto an even, clean surface so that they're about equal in length, and they also mentioned that it's okay if they're different thicknesses because that will give the end result a more interesting look. Okay, the next step is to take all of the snakes once they're rolled out and twist them together. This looks like some kind of candy, like that really gross cotton candy. Next, we need to roll this into its own giant snake, and they said to make it about twice as long as the original snake pieces. So now we have to fold it and twist it again and then roll it out yet again. They do suggest doing this about 2 to 3 times, so let's give it another whirl. Now the next step is to form a ball. No, it does not bounce. Now the next step is to take our ball and our rolling pin or jar and roll this out flat. They do mention that you want to keep it to a thickness of about 1/4 of an inch. After rolling our snake into a pancake, the next step is to take our jar and find a part of the marble design that you like the most and then trace it. Ta-da! They suggest smoothing the clay with your fingers if there are any bumps or imperfections, and you can see from cutting mine out with the vase that there are some weird edges. So here is my final product cut out. The next step is that we have to bake it in the oven. However, I'm going to make a couple more because I don't want to just make one coaster. Although I am always a party of one, so I guess I don't really need more than one coaster. Except, I guess, you know, and Mama might want 2 beers. So let's try to make a couple more. One issue that I ran into after making the first coaster was that after cutting it out, I still have a good amount of clay left. I think when I make my next ones, I'm just going to try to use less of each color so that I don't have so much left over in the end. All was going well. I made my second coaster and then this happened. I think that from all of the heat from my hands of rolling and twisting the clay and then doing that over and over, I think it's just too much heat and I'm not able to get them off the table anymore. But I have an idea, something that I think may help to prevent it from sticking to the table is just putting wax paper down. Yay! It worked! After cutting out my coaster, I noticed that there's some edging left from the vase. So I'm just really carefully using my X-Acto knife to cut off some of the bad edges and then smoothing it with my finger. I've made 8 beautiful coasters, and the next step is to line the baking sheet with some wax paper or parchment paper. And then plop the coasters on. In what I pinned, they mentioned baking these according to your clay's instructions, and for mine it said to bake them at 275 for 15 minutes per 1/4 inch of clay. And I actually made these, or tried to make them, about 1/4 of an inch because that's what they mentioned they did in what I pinned. Let's go pop these puppies in the oven and not lose them off the baking sheet before we make it to the oven. I've taken my coasters out of the oven and let them cool, and here's what they look like. These actually turned out. One observation that I have on just a couple of mine is that there's some kind of odd air bubbles on them, and they're not even that noticeable. I don't know how that would happen, and I don't know how to prevent it. If you've ever made these and you've encountered that and figured out a way to stop that from happening, let me know. The last step is to paint our coasters with the gold gilding. I think that this is actually a really nice touch because it can kind of help to hide any little imperfections you have around the edges. I have finally completed painting my coasters with the gold gilding, and I've got to say these turned out pretty darn cute. I think that these would be a great gift for a friend, a family member, or if you just want to keep them for yourself. Some of my clay had some sparkle to it, which I think gives these a really nice touch. Gizmo likes to eat her treats off the coasters, don't you, honey? Yeah, they hold her treats nicely. Gizmo approves of the coasters. I found that painting them was a pretty tedious process though. The gold gilding is a little difficult to work with. It's pretty runny, so you have to be really careful and precise with your painting. If you mess up and get it on a part that you don't mean to, you have a very, very short window to remove it. I did try 2 different techniques while painting it, as you saw. I tried to paint it with the coaster just laying flat down on some wax paper, and then I also tried to paint it while holding the coaster, and I found that painting it while holding it did make it a lot easier. On my scale of 1 being a Pinterest problem and 10 being Pinterest perfect, I'm giving this project a 7. It did go pretty well, however there were some problems along the way. One Pinterest problem that I encountered was after I punched out the coaster shape, I had a lot of extra clay left over. This is how much I had from my very first one that I made. This is a lot of excess clay. This is about how much I had when I was getting pretty good at making them and eyeballing how much I needed to use. The next Pinterest problem that I encountered was as I was making the coasters, I found that the heat from my hands was just making the clay way too warm and hard to work with. And once I tried to punch out my coaster and lift it up from the table, it just stuck to the table. So I ended up with this one time, which doesn't look that great. I decided to try to put wax paper down. And this did work pretty well. As I was rolling it though, especially at first, it kept sticking to my vase. So I did have to take it off the vase, put it back on the wax paper, roll it out, take it off the vase. But then as it got thinner, it seemed to want to stick to the wax paper more. And then once I punched it out, it either stuck to the vase and I was able to take it off that way, or it stuck to the paper and I was able to just peel it off pretty easily. So that did solve that problem. The cost of this Pinterest project was around $20. The most expensive thing that I purchased for this was, of course, the clay. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. If you've seen something on Pinterest that you want me to try, leave a comment for me down below, especially if it involves clay. I have a lot left here, so whatever project you've seen, let me know, and maybe it will be what I make in my next video. And of course, most importantly, keep on pinning. See you in my next video. Bye!